Okay, good morning class. In this video, I want to show you how to set up your Photoshop file so that we can start animating with keyframes. But before we can start, what's a keyframe or a key? Now, Richard Williams said that a key is a storytelling drawing or drawings that show what's happening in a shot. So, with that in mind, let's get started. Let's make a new file. So with Photoshop open, go to New File, and let's change these preset details or the settings. So double click up here. Let's change that to P01 underscore your name. Now the width is going to be 1024. Make sure it's set to pixels up here. Okay, make sure this is set to pixels. Very important. The height is 768. Resolution 7.2. Okay? So 1024, 768, and 72. You can have the background contents as transparent for now. And then say create. Now, let's make a few new layers. So in the layers panel, to the bottom right side, click on this button right here. It's a little square with a plus symbol in it. So click it twice. We're going to name layer 1 to background. Double click layer 2, layout. Double click layer 3, keys. Actually, I'm going to change that to K01. We're going to make minimum 2 keyframes, maximum 3 keyframes for this assignment. But I'll show you how to duplicate it later. Now, let's get our timeline up. So if you don't already have this up, go to Window, go down to Timeline. This should have a little check mark, and it should appear down here. Now, with this drop-down menu, make sure that Create Video Timeline is selected. Then click on Create Video Timeline button right here. You should get something that looks like this. Now let's adjust the settings. Right now we have 30 FPS, which is 30 frames per second. We want 12 for this assignment. So if you go to the Timeline tab right here, to the left-hand side, I'm going to go all the way to the right, next to Layers, to this sandwich button. Click on that. Once you click on it, you can go down to Set Timeline Frame Rate, right over here. We want to set this to 12. Then click on OK. Now, to make this smaller or bigger, there's a slider at the bottom next to the frame rate. I want to make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. And your assignment is only going to be 1 second long. So, using this slider over here, you're going to slide it all the way over to 1. See this one? 1 right here. And then for each layer, if you click on it, go at the end, you'll see that your mouse changes into this bracket with arrows. I'm going to click and drag to 1. And that black box, if you're holding it, will also tell you the duration. So make sure that it's set to 1. I'll do that for each layer. Now I'm going to zoom in with that slider. So now it tells me 01F, 02F, each one of these is considered a frame. And because we have 12 FPS, this is 12 frames. So 1, 2, all the way to 12. Now 12 shows up as 1 second. So keep that in mind. Let's see. In the sandwich button, make sure that Enable Timeline Shortcut keys is turned on. You can tell by the check mark. And Enable Auto Grouping is also turned on. Make sure with that check mark right there. Now let's go back to our keyframe in the Layers panel. We're going to drag this down and duplicate it down here. And then to combine these two into a group, I'm going to adjust my keyframe 1. I'm actually going to rename the duplicated one to keyframe 2. I'm going to change that to 4 frames. So you can change and you can see the duration in that black box, or you can check on the the timeline. So see duration 0, 4. So that's 4 frames. I'm going to drag this right in front of keyframe 1. So now this makes a video group. This is where all my keyframes are going to go. Going back to the layers, you can now change the group name to keyframes. And to get a little fancy, you don't have to do this part, but it helps me stay organized. Right click, I'm going to change the color to red. I always like keyframes as red. That's just a personal preference. And let's go ahead and make another keyframe. So click on K02, drag it, and duplicate it. I want to rename it to K03. So now I have 3 keyframes. Now, how do we use all this? Let's start with the background. Now with the background layer, this is just a quick demo. Yours might be a little different than mine based off of your project. So this is just a quick demo on how to do things. The background layer is for your background, which should not move. So if I was to create a quick, simple background, I'll just do that real fast. I'll create a floor as well. Okay, so that's my simple background. Once you make your background, let's lock that in. So background, there's a little lock button, so I don't draw on it by accident. Now, layout. Layout is basically a rough draft of where you want your drawing to go. So based off your storyboards that we made in class, where do you want your drawing to go? In this case, I'm going to do a ball, for example. So I want the ball to start here, end up somehow in here, and then jump up here. And I want to draw the path. So it's going to jump, it's going to go here, and I'm going to jump out to be out of the ravine. Now, when you're done with your layout, you want to lock it. Well, before you lock it, you can actually change the opacity so it's not bothering you when you're making your keyframes. So with the layout layer selected, go to opacity in the top of the layers panel, click on that, and you can adjust it to whatever you like. So I'm going to do about 45%, and then lock that layer. Now going to my keyframes. So going back to what Richard Williams said, a key is the storytelling drawing or the drawings that show what's happening in the shot. So keyframe 1, where's my ball going to start? So with my keyframe 1 selected in my timeline, I'm going to have my ball start up here. I want to use a different color so it's a little easier to see. Again, this is just a demo. Please do not copy this for your own project, unless if you want to follow along. So I'm going to create my keyframe, my ball, and then in the time slider, you can either use your arrow keys to move it, or you can grab on this blue little icon right here and move it to keyframe 2. Then click on keyframe 2. Now I can draw my ball down here, because part of the story is the ball jumps in and then jumps out. Okay. Now I want to see my previous frame 2. So go to the sandwich button, and now you can enable onion skins because we have that video group. So enable onion skins should allow you to see your last drawing, which is pretty cool. Now with that in mind, I'm going to drag my slider all the way to keyframe 3. I'm going to color it right here. So now my ball goes from the top all the way to the right. Now let's see the play option. If I play it, it'll just show as is. I can actually change this to loop back. So now I can think about the timing. So if I don't like this timing of the keyframes, Now you can adjust it. So let's say I want him to be in the ravine a little bit less. So you can adjust the layers so he's in there for a shorter amount of time. So watch that. So he's going to get ready to jump. He's going to be there for a short amount of time, and then he jumps out. So I like that timing for now. If you don't want to play with it just yet, that's fine. But know that you can adjust the layer size with that little bracket. But again, stay within that 1 second for this assignment. Okay, now, once you've done your background, your layout, and your keyframes, let's save it as a Photoshop file and export it as a GIF. So first things first, go to File, Save As. We've already done our name properly in the beginning of this video, so make sure it's P01 _ your name. I'm going to click on my desktop in my little favorites panel, or you can click on it here, and it should pop up. So desktop, make sure the format is Photoshop, and then click on Save. Ignore this, just say OK. Now, I want to make this a GIF. So File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. Now you should have this GIF. Make sure set to GIF right here. For now, it can be transparent. If you want to matte, you can. You don't have to. And then click on Save. I'm going to save it to my desktop. Make sure it's image only, settings default, and it should have that P01 _ your name .gif or GIF. And then click on Save. Now let's make sure it works. If I go to my desktop, let's see where it's saved. Now on Macs, instead of double clicking it, just click on it and then click on your spacebar. So now you should see your animated GIF play. So this is just setting up the keyframes. In the next video, we'll do the extremes and in-betweens to make it a little more lively. So yeah, that's all I got, and I'll see you in the next video.